Amira stood at the beach gate, holding her small suitcase in her daughter's hand. The sound of laughter drifted from the resort bungalow, her family's laughter. Then her sister, Doro, stormed out in a silk robe, eyes sharp with disgust. "Why did you come with your maggots?" she sneered. "There's no room here. Get lost." For a moment, the sea breeze went silent. Amira's daughter tightened her grip. She didn't cry. She only whispered, "Mama, are we not family too?" And that was the day Amira's silence died. When Doro posted pictures and messages about a big family beach getaway, Amira smiled as she read them. She thought, finally, her family wanted to be together again. After all, she hadn't gone on any family trip in years. She believed maybe this time things would be different. Maybe her sister had changed. So, she started saving little by little. Every evening, after putting her daughter to sleep, she stayed up late making handmade crafts, beaded bracelets, shell necklaces, and woven bags. She sold them in the market, hoping to earn enough for the bus fare, food, and a small room near the resort. She didn't tell anyone she was coming. She wanted it to be a surprise, a quiet, happy moment to show her family that no matter what, she still cared. But while Amira worked hard and dreamed of smiles and hugs, Doro had other plans. The truth was, Doro never wanted her sister to come. In her new world of fancy clothes and rich friends, Amira was a reminder of the past she wanted to forget. Doro had told everyone how successful her family was. She didn't want anyone to see Amira's old clothes or hear about her small craft shop. To Doro, Amira's presence would ruin the image she built, the image of a perfect, wealthy family. Amira, however, had no idea. She packed her small suitcase with care, placing a few clothes for herself and her daughter. She even wrapped a handmade bracelet as a gift for Doro. On the morning of the trip, she looked at her little girl and said softly, "We're going to see everyone again. You'll play by the sea." The child's eyes sparkled with excitement. The bus ride was long, but Amira didn't mind. Every mile brought her closer to her family. She imagined Doro's surprised face, their mother's warm smile, the laughter they would share. Her heart was full of hope. She didn't notice how different her old bag looked next to the sleek suitcases other passengers carried. All she cared about was being part of her family again. But when she arrived at the resort gate, that dream started to fade. From a distance, she could already hear laughter and music. Her heart raced. She thought they would welcome her. She didn't know she was walking into a place where she wasn't wanted. A place where her own sister saw her not as family, but as shame. When Amira finally reached the resort, her heart was beating fast with excitement. She could hear the sound of music and laughter from inside the bungalow. She smiled and held her daughter's hand tighter. "We made it," she whispered. But the moment she stepped through the gate, every smile around her slowly disappeared. Doro's friends turned to look at her from head to toe. Their eyes moved from her faded dress to her daughter's old sandals. One of them covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. Another whispered something into Doro's ear, and soon, Doro's face twisted into a look of disgust. Amira walked closer, still smiling. "Doro," she said softly, "I wanted to surprise you." But before she could say another word, Doro took a step forward and raised her voice so everyone could hear. "You can't bring your poverty here," she said coldly. "This is a luxury stay, not a charity tent." The people around them burst into laughter. Someone even took out their phone, pretending to record. Amira froze. For a second she didn't understand. Her smile faded, replaced by confusion. Her daughter, holding tightly to her skirt, looked up with wide, frightened eyes. Amira wanted to speak, to explain that she had paid for the trip herself, that she only came to be part of the family. But her throat felt dry. The words refused to come out. Instead, she took a deep breath and bent down to comfort her little girl. "It's okay, Isla," she whispered. "We'll be fine." Her voice was calm, though her heart was breaking into pieces. Doro turned away with a smirk and waved her friends toward the bungalow. "Let's go," she said. "Some people don't know their place." The group walked off, still laughing, leaving Amira and her daughter standing at the entrance alone. For a long time, Amira didn't move. She stared at the sea beyond the resort, blinking back tears. She felt the sting of humiliation, but also something else, a quiet strength rising inside her. She gently picked up her bag in her daughter's hand. "We'll stay somewhere else," she said softly, her voice steady now. Inside her, A promise was forming. She didn't know how or when, but she knew this moment would not be the end of her story. Her pain was sharp, but it was also shaping her into someone stronger. As Doro and her friends laughed in the distance, Amira walked away slowly, her silence heavier than any insult, because sometimes silence is where strength begins to grow. That night, after the humiliation, Amira didn't have the courage to walk back inside the resort. She stood quietly by the gate, holding her daughter close as people walked past without even glancing at her. Everyone had a place to stay, except her. She asked one of the resort staff if there was a small spare room she could pay for, but everything was fully booked. The woman looked at her with pity, offered an apologetic smile, and walked away. Amira didn't beg. She thanked her politely and walked toward the far end of the beach where a small palm hut stood, used mostly by cleaners during the day. She brushed away some sand and spread out her thin scarf on the floor for her daughter. Isla looked at her mother with sleepy eyes. "Mama, are we sleeping here?" she asked in a weak voice. Amira nodded gently and tried to smile. "Just for tonight, my love. Tomorrow will be better." She tucked her little girl in and used her shawl to cover them both. The sea breeze grew colder as the night went on. Later, rain began to fall. It wasn't heavy at first, but soon, water leaked through the roof, dripping onto Amira's shoulder. She pulled Isla closer, trying to keep her dry. Her daughter coughed softly in her sleep, and each sound made Amira's chest ache. She had imagined laughter, warmth, and love that night, but instead, she sat under a leaking roof, listening to her family's music from a distance. Through the palm leaves, she could see the glowing lights of the resort. Her family was there, eating, laughing, dancing like nothing had happened. She could even hear Doro's voice above the music, loud and cheerful, as if mocking her pain. Tears filled Amira's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She looked down at her sleeping child, brushed her hair away from her face, and whispered softly, "One day, we'll have our own place. No one will chase us out again." She didn't say it like a wish. She said it like a promise carved deep inside her heart. The wind blew harder, the rain colder, but something inside Amira had shifted. The part of her that always tried to please everyone was gone. What replaced it was quiet determination, the kind that grows in silence and pain. When morning finally came, her dress was wet, her body was tired, but her mind was clear. She stood up, looked at the sunrise, and whispered again, "This is not where our story ends." That night might have been the hardest of her life, but it became the start of her strength. The next morning, the sun rose softly over the sea. Amira sat near the water with her daughter, collecting shells washed up on the sand. She looked tired but peaceful. Isla smiled each time she found a pretty shell, running to show her mother. Amira wanted to keep her daughter's joy alive, even if her own heart was heavy. She planned to sell the shells later in the market, maybe make enough money to buy food for the day. As they worked quietly, a shadow fell beside them. Amira looked up and saw an older man standing nearby. He wore a simple white shirt and carried a gentle expression. "You were here all night?" he asked kindly. Amira hesitated, unsure if she should answer. Then she nodded. "Yes, sir. We didn't want to disturb anyone," she said softly. The man sighed and handed her a cup of warm tea he had brought from the resort kitchen. "I'm Mosi," he said. "I manage the resort. I saw what happened last night." His voice was calm and full of kindness. Amira looked down embarrassed. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I just thought the trip was for everyone." Mosi shook his head. "You didn't cause trouble. Some people just forget where they came from when life becomes easy." His words carried no judgment, only understanding. Amira looked at him curiously. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Because I've seen storms like this before. But sometimes storms don't destroy us. They push us to where we're meant to be." He pointed to the shells in her basket. "You made those bracelets yesterday, didn't you? I saw some of the guests admiring them." Amira nodded shyly. Mosi continued. "I could use someone like you in the resort's craft shop. Tourists love handmade art. You can work there for now, sell your creations, and stay nearby. It's not much, but it's honest." Amira's eyes filled with tears. She hadn't expected kindness from anyone, especially after the way her sister treated her. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know what this means to me." Mosi smiled and replied, "You'll thank yourself one day." Some storms only push you toward your own shore. Those words stayed with her long after he left. Amira looked at the sea and repeated them quietly. For the first time in a long while she felt hope, small but strong. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew she would face it with her head high. That morning, as Isla laughed and chased the waves, Amira realized something had changed. The world had rejected her, but life itself had just opened a new door. Amira started working at the small craft shop near the resort's entrance. It wasn't fancy, just a wooden stall filled with shells, beads, and small handmade decorations. But to her, it was a new beginning. Every morning, she arranged her jewelry neatly on a small table, while her daughter played nearby with pieces of coral and shells. She didn't talk much. She let her work speak for her. Her bracelets shimmered in the light, her necklaces carried stories of the sea, and her paintings of the beach looked alive. At first, only a few tourists stopped by. Some bought small items out of kindness, others out of curiosity. But soon, one woman from the city noticed the beauty in Amira's designs. She posted pictures online writing, "Met a humble artist by the ocean who turned seashells into magic." The post spread fast. The next day, more visitors came asking, "Where is the woman who makes ocean art?" Amira didn't know about the post at first. She just saw her small table getting busier every hour. Within days, she started earning more money than she had in months back home. She saved carefully, spending only what she needed for food and her daughter's care. Isla looked happier, her laughter returning. Sometimes, Amira would catch her daughter dancing in the sand saying, "Mama, we are lucky now." Those words warmed Amira's heart. Even the resort guests, people who once ignored her, began to greet her politely. Some asked about her story, others complimented her work. The same people who once looked down on her now admired her. Mosi, the manager, smiled proudly whenever he passed by. "See," he said one morning, "you didn't need anyone's approval. You just needed your own light." But not everyone was happy about Amira's success. From a distance, Dora watched. She saw tourists talking to her sister, taking pictures with her, buying her crafts and leaving kind reviews. Each time she saw Amira's smiling face, Dora's jealousy grew stronger. How could the sister she had insulted, the one she had called poor and worthless, suddenly become the center of attention? One afternoon, Dora walked by pretending not to notice Amira, but the truth showed in her eyes. The same sister she tried to humiliate was now shining brighter than ever. And without anyone's help, Amira didn't say a word to her. She simply smiled at a tourist who asked about her art, explaining softly how each piece was made from things the ocean left behind. That day, Amira realized something powerful. She didn't need revenge. Her success, her peace, and her quiet strength were already enough. The same sun that had once seen her tears now shone on her victory. And while Doro's jealousy burned silently, Amira's light only grew stronger. The resort soon announced something new. A competition to feature local creators whose work represented the beauty of the coast. The winner's art would be displayed permanently in the resort's gallery, and they would receive a large prize and recognition. Everyone in town began preparing, and to Amira's surprise, her name appeared on the list of finalists. Mosi had secretly submitted her name after seeing how loved her work had become. When Amira found out, she was nervous but also proud. For the first time, her hard work was being noticed in a big way. Her jewelry and beach art were displayed beautifully for the judges and guests to see. Each piece told a story: shells turned into bracelets, driftwood shaped into art, and broken glass polished by the sea used in frames. People stopped to admire her table, whispering about how unique her creations were. Even tourists who had bought her crafts before came to support her. But when Doro heard that Amira was a finalist, something inside her snapped. She couldn't accept that the same sister she once called poor might now be celebrated. She started spreading rumors around the resort. She told people that Amira didn't make the crafts herself, that she copied designs from online shops and claimed them as her own. Some of Doro's rich friends joined her lies, saying they had seen similar jewelry elsewhere. Amira heard the whispers. For a moment, she felt her heart sink. Old feelings of shame and fear returned, but she reminded herself of everything she had overcome. She kept working quietly, confident that truth would speak louder than gossip. When the judges began to hear the rumors, they decided to investigate before announcing the winner. They visited Amira's stall early one morning and asked her to show how she made her crafts. Without hesitation, she sat down with her tools and began creating right in front of them. She picked up broken shells, sea glass, and driftwood pieces scattered across the beach. Her hands moved gently and skillfully, turning what looked like trash into something beautiful. The judges watched silently, amazed by her calm and her talent. When she finished, one of them smiled and said, "She doesn't copy, she transforms." Those words silenced every rumor. The truth came out, and people began praising Amira even more. Doro stood among the crowd, red-faced, unable to meet her sister's eyes. When the judges announced Amira as the winner, the applause felt quiet but powerful. She didn't gloat or look for Doro's reaction. She simply held her daughter's hand, grateful and proud. That day, Amira proved that no lie could hide real light, and no amount of envy could destroy the truth. One afternoon, while Amira was setting up her new art pieces near the beach, a young tourist approached her with excitement. "Are you the woman from the video?" he asked. Amira looked confused. "What video?" she said softly. The tourist smiled and showed her his phone. On the screen was a clip from the day she had first arrived, the day Doro shouted, "Why did you come with your maggots?" The video showed everything: Doro's insults, the laughter of her friends, and Amira's quiet, calm face as she held her daughter's hand and walked away. Someone had recorded it secretly, and now it had spread everywhere. The title on the post read, "The Woman Who Stayed Silent While Her Sister Shamed Her." The video had gone viral overnight. Thousands of people around the world were sharing it, leaving comments like, "She's the definition of grace," and "Silence is sometimes louder than revenge." Amira's face, once bowed in pain, was now a symbol of strength. Messages began flooding in. People wanted to buy her handmade jewelry, support her art, and even visit the resort just to meet her. She didn't know what to say. She had never expected her pain to turn into something so powerful. Soon, journalists began showing up at the resort, asking for interviews. Online pages featured her story, calling her the ocean artist who turned humiliation into hope. Orders for her crafts poured in from different countries. Mosi had to help her manage everything because the demand became too much for one person. Amira stayed humble through it all. She smiled politely, thanked everyone, and kept working quietly. Meanwhile, Doro's world began to crumble. Her friends started avoiding her. People commented on her social media posts, calling her cruel and heartless. Some even stopped doing business with her family. She tried to defend herself, saying it was just a misunderstanding, but the truth was already clear to everyone. Her once perfect image shattered, and she became the face of arrogance exposed by kindness. Amira, however, didn't celebrate her sister's downfall. She didn't gloat or seek revenge. In her heart, she felt no joy in Doro's shame. To her, the fame wasn't about proving anything. It was about finding peace, finally being seen for who she truly was. When her daughter ran to her, smiling proudly, Amira lifted her up and whispered, "We didn't fight back, yet we won." Her small art table had become a place of hope. People visited not just to buy things, but to hear her story. Amira realized that her silence had spoken for many who couldn't speak for themselves. What once was humiliation had turned into her redemption. She didn't just rise above the pain. She transformed it into purpose. Weeks passed, and Amira's life began to bloom in ways she never imagined. One morning, she received a call from a gallery in the city. They had seen her work online, her ocean art, her jewelry, her quiet story, and wanted her to showcase it at an upcoming exhibition for rising creators. Amira sat in silence, holding the phone, trying to take it all in. She had spent years being told she wasn't enough, that she didn't belong, and now, the world wanted to see her. She used her earnings from the resort to travel back to the city. She rented a small but beautiful home with white curtains and a view of the evening sky. It wasn't grand, but it was hers, built from her hard work, her patience, and her pain. With her first big payment, she enrolled her daughter, Layla, in a good school nearby. Layla, who once hid behind her mother in fear of insults, now walked proudly, showing her classmates a photo of her mom's art in the gallery. Amira didn't chase luxury or fame. She simply wanted peace, a quiet life filled with purpose. Every morning, she worked by the window, crafting new designs from seashells, glass, and sand she brought from the beach. Each piece carried a story, a part of her healing. People loved her work not just for its beauty, but for the calm it represented. Then one afternoon, Amira got a message from her cousin. Her mother was very sick. For a moment, old pain came rushing back. Memories of her mother taking Doro's side, ignoring her tears, and calling her weak filled her mind. But then, Amira took a deep breath. She wasn't the same woman anymore. She traveled back to her family's home, carrying a small basket of fruit and medicine. When she entered, the house was quiet. Her mother lay on the bed, frail and pale. Doro stood nearby, her once confident face now filled with guilt. Amira sat beside her mother, and gently took her hand. Her mother looked at her with watery eyes and whispered, "You've carried grace I never taught you." Those words broke something inside Amira, not out of pain but release. She realized she no longer needed revenge or validation. Her peace was her victory. Doro stood in the corner, unable to meet Amira's eyes. The same sister who once shouted, "Get lost," now couldn't say a word. Amira didn't speak either. She simply stood, adjusting her mother's blanket, her presence saying everything. She had risen, not in anger, but in grace. The evening sky was painted in shades of orange and pink as Amira walked along the same beach where everything had begun. The waves moved softly, just like the memories that still lingered in her heart. The humiliation, the tears, and the strength she had found through it all. She often came here when she needed to think, to remind herself of how far she had come. But that evening felt different. Someone was waiting for her. Doro stood by the shore, her arms folded tightly, her eyes red and tired. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of the water filled the silence between them. Doro looked smaller than Amira remembered, not in size but in spirit. She had lost the loud confidence she once wore like a crown. Now she just looked broken. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "You were always better than me," she said, tears slipping down her face. "I just didn't want to see it. I thought if I kept you down, I would feel taller. But I was wrong. I destroyed the only sister who ever wished me well." Amira listened quietly. There was no anger left in her, only understanding. She had spent too long carrying pain that wasn't hers to hold. She looked at Doro, calm and steady, her voice soft but firm. "I was never better than you, Doro," she said. "I just chose not to fight you with your own weapons." Doro's knees gave way as she sank into the sand, crying. She wanted Amira to stay, to say something that would erase all the years of cruelty, but Amira knew that forgiveness didn't always mean returning. Sometimes it simply meant letting go. She took one last look at her sister, the same sister who once told her to get lost, and then turned toward the water. The wind brushed through her hair as she began to walk away, her steps calm and unhurried. Behind her, Doro called out her name, but Amira didn't turn back. The silence she once suffered from now felt peaceful. It was hers. The waves whispered softly as she walked, as if the ocean itself was closing an old chapter. Amira knew that she had finally freed herself, not by winning or proving anything, but by choosing peace over pain. Doro remained standing in the same silence Amira once endured. Only now, it was her turn to face the truth. Months later, the same beach that once held Amira's pain had become a place of healing. The old palm hut was gone, replaced by small colorful tents filled with laughter and the soft sound of women painting, weaving, and shaping seashells into art. Amira now led an art therapy camp there, a safe space for women and children who had been shamed, silenced, or abandoned, just like she once was. Every morning, the sun rose gently over the ocean, and Amira welcomed each new face with warmth. She taught them how to turn broken shells into necklaces, driftwood into picture frames, and paint into beauty. "Every piece has a story," she would say. "You just have to give it a second life." Her daughter, now healthy and full of light, ran freely along the shore, her laughter mixing with the sound of the waves. There was no cough, no fear, only joy. Sometimes Amira would pause her work, just to watch her, her heart swelling with gratitude. That child had seen the hardest days beside her, sleeping in the rain and going hungry. Yet here she was, running, smiling, alive. Women from nearby villages came to learn from Amira, not just about art but about strength. They called her Mama Bari, Mother of the Sea, because they believed the ocean itself had chosen her. Each day ended with a circle of stories, tears, and laughter as the sunset painted the sky golden. Amira would listen, her eyes reflecting both sadness and pride, because she understood their pain deeply, and she knew what it meant to rise again. One evening, as the camp quieted and the last rays of sunlight danced on the water, Amira stood alone by the shore, the same place where she once whispered to her daughter, "One day, we'll have our own place." Now that dream was real. The ocean breeze brushed against her face like an old friend, carrying the sound of her daughter's laughter across the horizon. She smiled softly, tears shining in her eyes, not from sadness, but from peace. She had lost everything once, but through grace, patience, and faith, she had found more than she ever imagined. Looking out at the endless waves, Amira whispered, "This was never a trip, it was a beginning." And as the water shimmered under the moonlight, it felt as if the ocean itself whispered back, agreeing, blessing her with freedom, renewal, and a life finally built on her own strength. That if Amira's strength touched your heart, don't scroll away. Share this story with someone who needs to remember their worth. Let the world know. Silence doesn't mean weakness, and kindness is never foolish. Sometimes the quiet ones rise the loudest.